The necklace he shouldn't have touched. Blake Radcliffe thought the school belonged to him. He was the kind of boy who never needed to raise his voice because his name did the shouting for him. Being the son of the principal meant he walked Ridgeway High's polished hallways like a crown prince. Students looked down when he passed. Teachers sighed in silence when he smirked, and no one ever dared to challenge him. For years he lived unchecked, tormenting those weaker, mocking those different, and enjoying the power of fear. That morning, sunlight spilled through the tall glass windows, warming the crimson leaves outside. Students crowded the lockers, laughter echoing in corners, sneakers squeaking on clean floors. Into this world stepped Madison Carter, a quiet 16-year-old black girl, carrying herself with the calmness of someone who had learned to keep her head low. She wasn't rich, she wasn't dressed in designer clothes, just a gray hoodie, faded jeans, and sneakers that had seen better days. She looked like background noise in a school of polished privilege, but around her neck, under her hoodie, hung a necklace, a simple silver chain with a small locket. It wasn't expensive, but it was priceless to Madison. Inside was a picture of her aunt, her late aunt who had marched in protests, stood against injustice, and told Madison stories about never bowing to cruelty. That necklace was her anchor. Blake noticed it, not because it was flashy, but because he noticed her, an outsider, someone he thought didn't belong in his world. He leaned against a locker, his friends gathered like shadows, and grinned with the cruelty of someone who smelled weakness. "Nice trinket," he sneered, stepping in front of her. "Did you steal it from a thrift store, or maybe they hand those out in the hood?" The hallway went silent, heads turned, students froze, waiting to see the next kiosk. Cool spectacle. Madison looked up, her calm eyes meeting his. She didn't answer. She just shifted her books tighter to her chest and tried to step past. Blake's grin widened. He grabbed the necklace, yanking it roughly so the chain snapped and the locket dangled in his fist. "Oh, this is cute," he mocked, dangling it before his friends. "Maybe I'll keep it. You don't deserve jewelry. People like you should be grateful we even let you in this school." It happened fast, too fast for anyone to believe at first. Madison's hand shot out, firm and precise, gripping his wrist with a strength no one expected. She twisted, a motion born from discipline, not rage. Blake gasped as pain shot up his arm, and before his friends could blink, he was on the ground, his back against the lockers, staring up in shock. The necklace fell from his hand, clinking on the polished floor. Gasps rippled through the hallway. Blake Radcliffe, the untouchable bully, was on the floor, his face red with humiliation. Madison bent down, picked up her necklace, and quietly put it back around her neck. Her calm never broke, her eyes never flinched. She simply whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Don't ever touch this again." For the first time in years, the bully's laughter failed him. Blake's friends stared, torn between helping him up and pretending they hadn't seen. The crowd didn't cheer, didn't move. Silence was the loudest thing in that moment. And Blake Radcliffe, son of the principal, heir to a school of fear, realized in those 10 seconds that he had just picked on the wrong girl. Whispers in the cafeteria. Blake Radcliffe could not believe what had happened. All morning his pride burned hotter than the autumn sun outside Ridgeway High. He replayed the moment again and again, him on the ground, Madison Carter standing tall, and the entire hallway watching. For a boy who lived on fear and control, humiliation was poison. By lunchtime he had decided the only cure was revenge. The cafeteria buzzed with chatter, trays clattering, and the smell of pizza and fries filling the air. Madison sat alone at a corner table, quietly eating, her headphones around her neck. She wasn't hiding, she never did, but she also wasn't trying to be seen. To her, silence was safer, yet today, whispers followed her like shadows. She's the one who dropped Blake. Did you see how fast it was? She didn't even look angry. Some voices carried admiration, others fear, but the loudest whispers were Blake's. He sat with his pack of friends at the center table, his jaw tight, eyes locked on Madison. "She thinks she's tough," he growled, slamming his tray down. "No one embarrasses me. She's gonna learn." One of his friends hesitated, "But man, she moved like she knew what she was doing. Maybe we just—" "Shut up," Blake snapped. "She's nothing, just some charity case who doesn't belong here. My dad let her in. I'll make her wish she never walked through those doors." He stood carrying his soda cup, his swagger returning as he marched across the cafeteria. The room seemed to pause, tension hanging in the air. Blake stopped at Madison's table, tilting his head with a smirk. "Hey, fighter girl, you missed a spot." With that, he tipped the cup, spilling soda across her tray, drenching her lunch and her hoodie. Gasps erupted. Some students laughed nervously. Others shook their heads, whispering, "Not again." Madison looked down at the mess, her breathing steady. Slowly she stood, pushing her chair back. Blake grinned wider, expecting her to shrink or cry, but her calm eyes lifted and she met his stare. "You don't get it, do you?" she said softly. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The room hushed, every ear straining to catch her words. "You think power is making people small, but real strength is what you can't take from me." Blake sneered. "Well, what strength? You're just a—" He didn't finish. Madison's hand moved fast, grabbing the edge of her soaked tray. With one smooth motion, she set it on the table beside him. She didn't hit him, didn't retaliate. Instead, she leaned close and whispered, "You don't scare me. Not anymore." The words cut sharper than any punch. For the first time, Blake felt it. Fear. It was small, buried under his anger, but it was there. He tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. Students stared, some even smiling at Madison's quiet defiance. She picked up her bag, left the ruined lunch behind, and walked out of the cafeteria. No scene, no fight, just dignity. But as the doors swung closed behind her, Blake slammed his fist on the table. "This isn't over," he muttered. His pride demanded a war. What no one knew, what Blake couldn't have imagined, was that Madison Carter wasn't just any girl. The discipline in her movements, the calm in her eyes, all came from years of training, years of struggle. She had a past written in sweat and strength, a history no bully could erase. And soon, Ridgeway High would see exactly who she really was. The secret behind her calm. That evening, Madison Carter walked home with her hood pulled low, her backpack heavy, but her thoughts heavier. The whispers from school still echoed in her head. Some kids looked at her like she was dangerous, others like she was a hero. But Madison didn't care about titles. All she wanted was peace. Her small apartment sat above a laundromat on the edge of town. The walls were cracked, the paint faded, but inside it was filled with warmth. Posters of athletes lined the wall, books stacked in corners, and in the center of her desk sat the necklace, carefully polished, resting in a box. She touched it gently, whispering, "I won't let anyone take you from me." The necklace wasn't just jewelry. It had belonged to Aunt Rosa, her mother's sister, who had marched for justice in the South years before Madison was even born. Aunt Rosa had raised Madison like her own, teaching her stories of courage and telling her, strength isn't about hurting others. It's about never letting them break you. When Madison was 12, Rosa enrolled her in a local martial arts program run by a retired fighter named Coach Daniels. He was tough, strict, and believed in discipline above all. Madison had trained every week since then, learning not just how to fight, but how to control her mind. Hours of sparring, bruises, sweat, and endless drills had shaped her into someone Blake could never understand. She remembered Rosa's voice the day she passed. "Madison, the world will try to put you down. They'll see your skin, your silence, and they'll think you're weak. But never forget, you carry fire in you. Use it to protect, not to destroy." Those words were Madison's anchor. They were why she hadn't exploded in anger in the cafeteria, why she had walked away instead of fighting back. She wasn't weak. She was stronger than Blake could ever imagine. But Blake Radcliffe wasn't done. That same night, he sat in his room fuming. Posters of luxury cars covered his walls, his expensive sneakers tossed across the floor. He scrolled through his phone, replaying the cafeteria video someone had secretly recorded. The clip already had comments under it. Finally, someone shut Blake up. "Madison's a legend. Principal's son got owned." Each word cut deeper. His pride boiled into rage. He slammed the phone down and muttered, "She thinks she can embarrass me? She has no idea who she's dealing with." He texted his closest friends. "Tomorrow, After practice, she's done. At school the next morning, the tension was thicker than the autumn fog. Students whispered in corners, their eyes flicking between Blake and Madison. She walked with her usual calm, books in hand, but she felt the weight of stares. People expected something to happen. By afternoon, the trap was so, and Blake and his crew waited near the gym, leaning against the lockers, smirks plastered across their faces. When Madison walked by, Blake stepped forward, blocking her path. "Hey, fighter girl," he sneered. "I think we need a rematch. You and me, right here." The hallway froze. Students gathered, hungry for drama. Blake cracked his knuckles, already picturing victory. But Madison didn't flinch. She set her books down, lifted her eyes, and said calmly, "You still don't get it. This isn't about fighting. It's about respect." Blake laughed. "Respect? The only thing people respect here is strength, and I'm about to show you mine." Madison sighed, her calm steady. She knew what was coming, and she wasn't afraid. What Blake didn't know, what the whole school was about to discover, was that his idea of strength was nothing compared to the discipline she carried in every breath. The stage was set. The fight he wanted was coming. But it wouldn't end the way he thought, the fight everyone waited for. The hallway outside the gym felt like an arena. Word spread fast, faster than any teacher could stop. Students leaned against lockers, phones ready, whispers buzzing like electricity. Blake Radcliffe stood tall in the center, his friends flanking him like guards. His jaw was set, his fists clenched, his pride demanding a win. Madison Carter walked forward, calm as ever. No fear in her eyes, no rush in her step. She placed her books gently on the floor as though she had all the time in the world. The crowd hushed. Every eye was on her. Blake smirked. "Ready to see what happens when you mess with me?" Madison tilted her head. "You don't want this fight, Blake." Her voice was steady, almost soft, but it carried like a warning. He laughed, loud and cruel, trying to drown the unease rising in his chest. "You think you can scare me with words? You're nothing." Then he lunged. It happened in a blur. Blake's fist swung wide, but Madison stepped aside with precision, his knuckles hitting empty air. She didn't strike back. Instead, she moved with sharp control, redirecting his momentum. He stumbled, nearly crashing into the lockers. Gasps filled the hallway. Blake growled and charged again, this time faster. But Madison had trained for years. Her body flowed like water, dodging each blow, her movements measured and calm. Every miss made Blake angrier, sloppier, and the crowd could see it. His rage was his weakness. Finally, he lunged with both hands, trying to grab her. Madison pivoted, hooked his arm, and in one swift motion sent him sprawling to the ground. The thud echoed through the hallway. Phones caught every second. Students shouted, some cheering, some shocked. Madison stood still, breathing steady. She didn't raise her fists, didn't press the advantage. She simply looked down at him and said, "Strength isn't hurting people, it's controlling yourself." Blake lay on the floor, humiliated again. His friends hesitated, unsure whether to help him or hide. The crowd murmured, and for the first time, students looked at Madison with awe, not pity. A teacher finally rushed in, shouting, "What's going on here? Break it up!" The crowd scattered, kids hiding their phones, pretending nothing had happened. Blake scrambled up, his face red, pointing at Madison. "She attacked me." But the silence in the hallway betrayed him. Everyone had seen the truth. Madison didn't defend herself with excuses. She simply picked up her books and said, "I walked away once. Don't make me prove myself again." She left, her calm steps echoing down the corridor. Blake stood trembling, his pride shattered a second time. For years, fear had been his weapon, but now, fear belonged to him. Students whispered as he passed, no longer afraid of him, but of the girl he had underestimated. That night, Madison sat in her small apartment, wrapping her necklace around her fingers. She hadn't wanted the fight, but she knew it had been necessary. Aunt Rose's words echoed in her mind. "One day you'll stand against someone who believes they can own you. On that day, don't fight to win. Fight to remind them they can't take your dignity." She closed her eyes, whispering, "I hope I made you proud." But across town, Blake wasn't done. Humiliation turned to fury. His pride demanded something bigger, something crueler. And this time, he wasn't planning to face Madison alone. When pride turns dangerous, Blake Radcliffe could barely sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw himself sprawled on the floor, the crowd laughing, Madison Carter standing tall above him. It was more than humiliation. It was defeat. For the first time in his life, he wasn't the one in control. His pride screamed for payback, something bigger than a hallway fight. By morning, he had a plan. He whispered it to his closest friends as they leaned against the lockers before class. "We'll corner her after school. Not just me this time, us. She thinks she's strong? Let's see her against 5 of us." One friend shifted nervously. "Man, that's not right. She didn't even hurt you. She just embarrassed you." Blake shoved him. "Shut up. You either stand with me or you're against me." Fear kept them quiet. All day, tension buzzed through Ridgeway High. Students avoided Blake, whispering about what he might do next. Madison felt the stares, but she stayed calm, her focus steady. She knew something was coming. People like Blake never walked away quietly. When the final bell rang, Madison packed her books slowly, then slipped her necklace under her hoodie. She touched it once, as if drawing strength from her aunt's memory, then walked toward the gym exit. Blake and his crew were waiting outside, leaning against the brick wall like hunters circling prey. "Well, well," Blake said, stepping forward. "Looks like you done to have your little audience now." The others smirked, cracking their knuckles, forming a loose circle around her. Madison stopped in the center, her eyes calm, her shoulders squared. "So this is what strength looks like to you?" she asked. 5 against 1? Blake's smirk faltered for a split second, but he covered it with a laugh. "You had your fun embarrassing me. Now I'm going to make sure you never forget your place." He lunged first, as always, but Madison was ready. She sidestepped, her movements smooth, controlled, and precise. When another boy swung at her, she blocked, redirected, and sent him stumbling into the wall. Gasps came from the small crowd of students who had followed at a distance, phones in hand, recording. It wasn't chaos. It was clarity. Madison didn't fight with rage. Every strike she blocked, every dodge she made carried discipline. She moved like someone trained not to destroy, but to protect herself. Her breathing was steady, her eyes sharp. Within minutes, Blake's friends were groaning, backing off, holding their arms and shoulders where Madison's swift counters had landed. She hadn't hurt them badly, only enough to stop them. And then there was Blake. Furious, red-faced, his pride burning hotter than his pain. He charged one last time, screaming, fists wild. Madison waited, then caught his arm mid-swing, twisted, and brought him to his knees. The crowd gasped again. Phones flashed. Blake Radcliffe, the untouchable bully, was on the ground, powerless. Madison leaned close, her voice calm but firm. "This is the last time, Blake. You can keep trying to break me, but you'll only keep breaking yourself." She let him go. He collapsed onto the pavement, gasping, too stunned to move. His friends helped him up, their fear plain. The crowd erupted in whispers and cheers. "She destroyed them. Did you see that? She's unbelievable." Madison didn't bask in the attention. She simply picked up her bag, adjusted her necklace, and walked away. For the first time, the school saw her not as the quiet black girl who didn't fit it, but as someone unshakable, someone who carried a strength deeper than fists or fear. But inside, Madison knew this wasn't just about her and Blake anymore. It was about something bigger: respect, justice, dignity. She hadn't just fought for herself, she had fought for everyone who had ever been stepped on by someone like him. And though Blake's pride was shattered, his anger still smoldered. He wasn't finished, not yet. Respect earned. The next morning at Ridgeway High, the whole school buzzed. Videos from the fight outside the gym had spread like wildfire. Students whispered in hallways, screens glowing with clips of Madison standing tall, Blake on the ground, his friends defeated. For the first time, the bully who ruled the school wasn't feared. He was laughed at. Blake Radcliffe walked into school with his head down, his pride in tatters. Every whisper felt like a knife, every glance a reminder that his power was gone. His father, the principal, had called him into the office that morning, furious. "Do you realize the damage you've done?" he snapped. "Your name, our reputation, ruined." Blake clenched his fists. "It's her fault. Madison humiliated me." The principal slammed his desk. "No, Blake, you humiliated yourself. You picked the wrong fight." Meanwhile, Madison walked through the halls quietly, her books in hand, her necklace shining faintly beneath her hoodie. But this time, she wasn't invisible. Students moved aside with respect, some nodding, others whispering encouragement. "You're amazing. You showed him." "Thank you." At lunch, the cafeteria, once Blake's stage, now belonged to her. As she sat with her tray, students gathered around not to mock, but to listen. A girl from the debate team leaned in. "How did you stay so calm?" Madison smiled softly. "Because fighting with anger makes you weak. Discipline makes you strong." Her words spread, carried by voices eager for something better than fear. But Blake wasn't ready to surrender. He stormed into the cafeteria, rage boiling in his chest. The room fell silent. He marched to Madison's table, fists trembling. "You think you've won? You think you're better than me?" Madison looked up, her calm eyes meeting his storm. "No," she said gently. "I never wanted to be better than you. I just wanted respect." The silence was thick. Every student held their breath. Blake's face twisted, torn between anger and shame. He wanted to strike, to lash out, but the weight of every staring eye froze him. For once, he wasn't in control. Finally, his shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of him. Without a word, he turned and walked away, the cafeteria buzzing with shock. That evening, a message spread across the school. Madison Carter wasn't just a fighter. She was a symbol. Teachers praised her discipline. Students admired her courage. And even those who once feared Blake now looked to her as proof that strength didn't come from cruelty. At home, Madison sat at her desk, the necklace in her hand. She whispered to her aunt's photo inside the locket. "I stood my ground. I didn't let them break me." For the first time, she felt truly seen, not as an outsider, not as someone who didn't belong, but as someone who had earned respect through resilience, dignity, and courage. The story of Ridgeway High was no longer about a bully who ruled by fear. It was about a girl who chose discipline over rage, strength over cruelty, and respect over pride. And from that day forward, no one ever looked at Madison Carter the same way again. Ending line for narration: respect is never given by fear, it is earned by strength, humility, and courage.